Three, two, one. Anthony Darby.
Chuck Henn.
We are here with our very first guest, Manny from GTI. Thank you so much.
What up, guys? How you guys doing?
So today, with our first guest, we are going to dive into some inside industry, kind of the hiring process in terms of how we got into the industry, how we hire at PEH. A lot of folks, they kind of see what we do, and they, at least the perception of what we do. And of course, everybody wants to get into the industry. So I think today we'll try to at least debunk some of the myths, go in through some of what the actual day-to-day is like when you're working in the industry and some of the challenges that you face, and kind of some hacks, for lack of a better word, in terms of how you can pursue a career in the cannabis industry. So that being said, one of the reasons why I brought that topic up is because I really appreciate how Manny kind of rose up the ranks at GTI, and I've now known him for as long as the industry has been going, for the most part. And I think his story is not really so unique when you look at the folks that have had some success in the cannabis industry. So, Manny, thank you so much for coming on today. And I know that your very first gig was actually in a dispensary, correct?
Correct, yeah.
And share with us, as you did before, share with us a story about how you got your first job at the dispensary, including meeting one of the partners and facilitating that, and how you kind of utilized your background to get into the industry.
Yeah, for sure. So before the cannabis industry, I was working in the food and beverages industry. So I was a manager at the country club, at Woodmont Country Club. That's where I met the investor, Mike Cadosa. He was part of the Chesapeake Alternatives. Then he separated off. He got his own thing going on. He's still in the industry.
But you found someone that you thought was in a position of some sort of a power, some position that could help you, and you kind of fostered that relationship.
So I was doing like table touches at the country club, and then he mentioned cannabis dispensary, medical cannabis dispensary. So I just like pretty much dropped everything. I was like, here's my resume. Tell me what I need to get my foot in the door. So I knew I would be getting a pay cut at that time. He mentioned
Please take note to the number one answer on the board.
He mentioned that right away. He was like, I don't know what you're getting right now, but it's not going to be the same. But I know your work ethic, so just keep doing what you're doing. So pretty much I took advice, and I didn't quit my job completely. What I did was I worked full-time at the country club and got on part-time gig at Rise Bethesda. So, Rise opened up in December. I was one of the first hires. I got into the dispensary around like January. So I was doing part-time Rise, full-time country club. So I had no days off for about 6 months. Then after that, I realized I'm like, okay, so I'm slowing my potential down of growing in the cannabis industry, and I'm here at the country club, just like still, I'm trying to grow.
It becomes less rewarding, right?
Right, because like
it's not where your passion is.
Right, because I had a staff training at the country club. They were talking about what your true passion is, and my manager over there, he was so passionate about the country club. He was like, yeah, I'm so passionate about food and beverages, and I'm over here, and I'm like, I'm not passionate about this anymore. I'm passionate about cannabis. So after that staff training, I'm like, I need to come to a realization. I need to commit 100% to my passion. So right then and there, I decided to put in my 2 weeks notice, and it was about like April. So 420 comes, I started my full-time gig at Rise Bethesda. So
that's right. Your first full-time day was on 420, right?
Yep.
Oh,
that's awesome. That's really neat. All right, so let me pick apart some of the things that I picked up from that. So first thing was you immediately put yourself in a mindset that you're going to take a pay cut.
Yeah.
I can't say I've met anybody, but the amount of folks that come to the cannabis industry to make more money are so few and far between. It's almost non-existent. It's a folklore. It's a myth. Almost everyone that comes into the industry, at least in the beginning, they do it because they have this passion. They have this fire, and the passion within them is strong enough that they're willing to say, okay, you know what? I'm making several $100s a night here at the country club, or I'm making a nice salary and things are well, but the financial stimulation is not enough to outweigh this passion that I have for cannabis. And you're a cannabis user, correct? Obviously. And were you, did you kind of always feel this? So I don't want to put words in your mouth, but like for me, in the business world, I always felt a little bit like an outcast because I was a heavy cannabis user and I didn't assimilate with the alternative culture and Grateful Dead and all that. Like I wanted to work an 80-hour work week, and I wanted to like pursue my entrepreneurial dreams, and I wanted to hustle, but I wanted to smoke weed while I did it. And there's a lot of folks that like that was one of the drivers, was the fact that they felt like they were kind of a high performing individual. So you were always used to smoking weed at the country club, and always looked at it as something that was like a benefit to you, right? Like something that helped you out. And I think that is almost one of the things that's it's necessary to have that passion to understand it. Like this is like for me, I was calling weed my medicine like far before there was legalization programs. And it was just always looked at as like my friends kind of knew that like for me to balance like my freaking mental instability, like smoking some weed was like what was helpful. And I just think that so I hear that you have that drive, this passion for cannabis, and this understanding of work ethic. So many folks, they come in this industry and they kind of want something handed to them, and the fact that you were willing to say, okay, I can't do this forever, but for a short period of time until it needs to, I'm going to put the work in. I'm going to work 7 days a week, and I'm going to do everything I possibly can to support this dream. And I think the reality is that many of us find the situation, and I'd be lying if I said I'm not in the same situation today, where the lack of financial rewards is always paired next to like this mission and what we're doing. And I think that it becomes once you feel it inside, you feel that the passion, and you start feeling great about the work that you're doing. It definitely helps understand the financial piece. But we have kids, like everyone's got their own financial burdens and their own financial situations. And for a lot of folks, I would say one of the barriers to entry in the cannabis industry is just the fact that like they have these financial situations, or they have they have kids, they have costs, and there's not a clean in to the industry. And I think one of the ways that you can bypass that is by doing what Manny did and said, look, I'm not going to quit my full-time job. I'm just going to pick up another job, and I'm just going to bust my ass and work and work and work and save up. And so I totally get that. And I think that that's what, what I've seen a lot of folks that have the same thing is where, okay, if the financial situation moving into a dispensary agent position is not going to be fruitful enough, then I'm just going to have to work more hours. I'm just going to have to keep my regular job and keep the bills paid and save and basically create this out plan. And it seems like that's what you did for yourself, and that's a great story.
So let me ask you this question, Manny, because I feel like we kind of did the same thing to a certain degree, where it's like, it's not, call it starting at the bottom, right? But you went in there for the first job that you can get in the industry, and you learned what it's like to be a patient consultant / bud tender, whatever the word is used as. But I mean, that's like you're learning from the ground up, and be able to interact with the patients, I'm sure has helped you with your job today. And I think there's a lot to be said about just getting your foot in the door. If it's your passion, just get your foot in the door wherever you can. The industry's so young. You have plenty of time to learn. You got to be a little bit patient about it. I mean, the industry's at its infancy. So the sooner you get in and make the decision and make the commitment, the more that you can learn.
Right. The more time you have time to grow. I mean,
I don't want to jump too far ahead, but even I feel like there's almost always some variance of luck involved, right? Like there's lots of partners, there's lots of investors in this industry, but truthfully, you got Mike Cordoza, right? Who is honest and a good a person as the day is long, and GTI and Rise are great companies. That's a big piece of this too. Like if you have all these aspirations and you want to do the right thing, I would suggest making sure that if you're going to put yourself out there and you're going to make these sacrifices, that you do it with a brand and a culture that you can buy into and believe into.
So I believe in the company. I believe in the product, so it just makes my life easier,
So now you take a job. It's 420. You're full time in the cannabis industry. These, what everyone else says that they wish they could do or wanted to do. Now you're living the frugal life of a dispensary agent. Tell me what's next. So you go in there. You're not making a ton of money. I'm assuming that a lot of your job is probably pretty monotonous, right?
Right. Pretty much. I mean, you're just taking care of patients. Like I mean. It's the first step into the industry. You got to check in people. You got to learn the regulations. You got to learn the products. You got to learn what's available. You got to learn what the patient's like. I mean, I knew cannabis myself, but then when I get into it, I was surrounded by people that was in the cannabis industry already. like Andrew Benton. Like he was my GM at Rise Bethesda, and I taught a lot from him. Like he's a
It looks like
guru
you
of
came in with the
cannabis.
sponge mentality, not this. I've used cannabis all my life, so I know everything, right? And that seems to be something that's always a winner at our dispensaries. The folks that come in with all these preconceived notions of how this should be done, and it seems like they struggle when the folks come in and say, "Okay, I'm going to look at this from a new set of perspective. I'm going to be a sponge." It looks like Andrew was able to be really helpful to you.
Oh yeah. I mean, so is everybody else that was in the industry. Like James was there. I mean, he just like pretty much the management staff at the Rise dispensary. Like learned a lot from them, and I was able to just pretty much share that knowledge with the patients. And now, I mean, when I have free time, not all the time. Not all the time the dispensary gets busy. Whenever you have free time, I was in Leafly, I was in Google, just like searching up articles, like High Times magazine, right? Just researching stuff. You had to put yourself into the system itself, and you need to learn
You
yourself.
also, if I'm not mistaken,
There's no shortcuts for that.
Nah, no shortcuts. Yeah. No handouts are given to you. You got to earn those.
You got to earn it. Yep.
And so that's an amazing. The resources are out there at this day and age. Like 15 years ago, when you wanted to go research something on cannabis, you had nowhere near the amount of resources that you do now. But now, it's out there, and you can do the homework. I think you also, if I'm not mistaken, you took some of your previous industry knowledge in food and beverage and events and stuff, and you brought that on to at Rise, right?
Because I didn't want to be a bartender for the rest of my life in the cannabis industry. So I wanted to pretty much show them what I was worth, and did flyers, I did PowerPoints. I wanted to do like community outreach events. So I paired up with another bartender named Blake. We got along very well. We just started doing like community events, like we did an education event on cannabinoids and terpenoids, and then right after that we did a Canna Fit class. So that was like one of the first Canna Fit class we ever done.
That's cool.
But it wasn't nothing like fitness was involved or anything. It was just a PowerPoint on how cannabis could associate it with your workout routine.
Stigma a little bit, right?
Just trying to break the stigma. That's all we were trying to do.
I would also argue that you talked about working 7 days a week and the amount of hours. Like you're doing Canna Fit stuff. It seems like you're doing stuff that, like, if it wasn't appealing or engaging to you, it would have been impossible to have that.
Right.
Yeah. And I think that's what I ran into a lot, was some of those hours that were ridiculous when we were opening up, and like just some of the hell that we were living through. I think if it was any other industry or any other topic that I wasn't as passionate about, like I think lacrosse or weed are the only two things that I would have, I would have like sacrificed my life and my body for to do this, to be honest with you. Like I couldn't you have to persevere and to do this day in and day out, to do it the right way. You gotta have a passion for it. So you're kind of a rising star in the dispensary for the fact that you're busting your ass and you're doing these events and people are starting to notice, right? So then does the job open up in?
So here's the funny part. Then there was a sales associate part and a brand ambassador part. So a brand ambassador is more like a step into the sales role. So I was
like corporate, right? And
full corporate.
And so for those folks not familiar, GTI's got the Rise dispensaries, and then they are Chesapeake Alternatives products. So all your Rythm cartridges, your Air Pro, Field Collection,
Mary's Medicinal, Dr. Solomon now.
A lot of the really top
stuff that you're popular with. And then in the very near future, you'll be seeing flower from these folks as well. So what this new position for Manny would be is he would actually be working at more of the processor arm and selling into dispensaries, correct?
Correct.
Like selling to guys like us.
Yeah, instead of selling it to the patients, I'll be going and selling it to the dispensaries. But that's
more responsibility, right?
Right, more responsibilities, more. I mean, that's more power, more responsibility. So. But that was the sales associate role. So, but I applied for the brand ambassador role, which was like a step in. So it was pretty much like you're going in with the delivery driver and just like making connection with the point of contact. So it would be the person that's checking in the order, Cody or whoever, then making sure the order comes in right. So I was willing to do that. So I was just like...
So you're riding with the dude in the Sprinter?
Yeah, right. So that's what I originally applied for. So that I was willing to do that, and I met with Jeff. You all met Jeff. So he's one of the most amazing people I've ever met.
Jeff is a great dude. I really like them a lot.
Right. Good energy. He's always positive. He's my life coach, and one of the best coaches I ever had. So this dude called me and he was like, okay, yeah, you sure you're willing to drive all the way from Rockville to Centerville just to drive around in the truck for like 3 hours and drive back and drive back? He was like, yeah, I'm willing to do that because I want to get into the sales role. He was like, okay, I like what I'm hearing. So he was like, come on in for a second interview. So I went into the second interview. I didn't dress like I wanted to go in for a brand ambassador. I suited up, just like the whole country.
Oh, Chuck just got a little more important. Sorry.
I mean, a lot of what Manny says, I'm going to let him talk in a second, but it's really good. It's not only just advice for the cannabis
Any
industry,
job.
it's life advice.
Right.
It's advice for any job. So just
right. I mean, I swagged up, like I suited up, like you're looking mad dapper. So just went in, killed the interview. So he. At that moment, he was like, "Look, you're definitely not gonna be in this role forever. You're gonna be a sales associate. I just want to get your foot in the door." I was like, "I totally understand that. Tell me when to start." So, few days go by. I follow up, and then turns out the sales associate role opened up. So he was just like, "Hey, I know you got in as a brand ambassador. How about we just like move you up to be a sales associate?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm in." When do I start? I haven't done it, but I told him that I'm willing to do whatever it takes. So that's pretty much,
And that's why you got it. Like
the luck.
from
the luck
the opposite
itself.
side, I can tell you that some of the things, like Cody's our GM, and everyone knows that now. There was an intermediate spot where like we didn't have a role. We basically made an operations manager role. We made up a role because we had someone that was busting their ass and showing lots of potential and all the things that we were looking for. And although we didn't have an exact spot for him, we kind of put him in there. Same thing with you. Like, although like they were looking to hire you as a brand ambassador because you showed up and overperformed in that role, you immediately qualified yourself for new opportunities. And we find that in our dispensary all the time.
Yeah, and that's the biggest
life, right?
In life, right? Like, so like I've been on both sides of the coin in a multitude of different situations, whether it's, somebody just out of college going into an interview or being the person that's doing the interviews, the whole gabbin'. Like a lot of what I look for now, what I say is the soft skills, right? Like how's their appearance? Or are they friendly? Or are they courteous? Can they talk appropriately? Like how's the writing? Like just all these kind of other little things that lead you on to believe how a person or an individual fit within an organization rather than just looking at a resume, but kind of looking at it kind of in the whole. And that goes to how you present yourself and speak and talk and introduce yourself to people and your handshake. Like a lot of things kind of go into that. So I'm glad you brought that kind of stuff up, Manny, because it's really, really good knowledge.
So you get brought on as a sales associate and you're given a little territory, I guess?
No, well, pretty much, we don't have territories or anything like that, but Jeff is the mastermind. So he just tells me where to go and I go do it. And then, Cody, that was like one of my very first account. You guys were like one of my very first accounts. So
We
like,
kind of hit it off early.
right. So that was like, I guess like the same time as Cody got the promotion because, I don't remember dealing with you directly. I remember dealing with Cody directly. So that was around the same time.
Definitely the operation stuff. Yeah.
Right. So Jeff literally just like pretty much rode with me for like 2 weeks. Just introduced me to people, show me his process, and then after a while, it was just like I was just on my own. It was just less and less phone calls. It was less and less texts, and it was just like I guess I'm doing the right thing because like he hasn't talked to me in anything. But I was worried. I'm like, should I check
It's
in?
typically like a sign that you're doing your job is because there's not enough time and hours to micromanage everybody. So you only manage your problems, and if you're doing good, you don't hear
See, I
from
wasn't
somebody.
used to all that. Dude. I was in a 9 to 5, not a 9 to 5, food and beverage.
Controlled
It's
environment.
but now you have autonomy and the flexibility to just
Right.
get your job done.
So I didn't know how that was supposed to feel like. I was scared. I'm like, am I doing the right thing or should I just like, I was calling him. But after a while, I figured like as long as I was doing my job, he'd leave me alone. And then there's nothing else there was. I mean, there's constant coaching. Like there's like sales one-on-one meetings every like week. And then there's phone call meetings. But other than that, he just showed me the process. And now I'm just in the process and I'm just doing my job.
That's awesome. So you've been in the same role now for how long?
About 9 months or so. Yeah.
That's awesome. And do you have anything aspirations of what might be next, or?
Oh yeah. I mean, I want to kill it in Maryland, and then for sure I want to go to a new market, and then probably do the
Is
same.
Virginia your next new market?
No, I don't even think we're in Virginia.
Okay.
But we're in a bunch of other states, but I want to go to more like the West Coast. That's somewhere hot weather.
Sunny
yeah.
more.
Yeah.
You don't like these Maryland winters?
No, I love Maryland, man. I mean, I'm from Sri
the
Lanka.
winters, just the winters.
Yeah, just the
The
winter.
winters, right?
Dude, one of my great friends in Utah showed me a picture today of snow on his deck
Oh, look at that.
Nice.
this morning. All week is supposed to snow. No, thank you.
I'm just get my plane ticket, take my snowboard out there, and have an opportunity to go this winter.
So I really appreciate that, and I think we'll give the abbreviated versions of our stories, but you're going to hear a lot of the same type of things. I mean, the first time that cannabis as a business was introduced to me in a very real sense was when so I was working in a sales job, and we would basically support franchises. So like 7-Eleven corporate would like use our software to like manage all of their franchisees, right? So I'm in New York and I'm at a trade show, International Franchise Expo, and I'm miserable, right? Because I'm selling stuff and I'm not having a great time. And like out of the corner of my eye, and picture picture being at like a second level and like looking down at like huge like a trade show floor, and then on the very right corner I see a separate security guard, and I start seeing like some weed signs. And I'm like, and I got my badge on and everything, and I'm like, what the hell? So I walk over, and meanwhile I'm hitting my vape pen outside because I hate being at this thing, and like I'm just disgusted with like everything that's happening. And I go to the kiosk or whatever, and I say, "Will my badge get me in?" And the dude looked around, I was like, "Yeah, sure." And it was a cannabis business expo, and there was processing machines, and there were all these legitimate businesses. And this is probably 5 or 6 years ago, so it was like completely foreign to me. Like I had never seen anything like this in my life, and it was like the first time that I saw dudes like suited up, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like this exists. And it was like not too long after that when Maryland started getting some steam, and we were going to get a program, and I kind of continued down this path. And Chuck and I both started working in DC around the same time, which was funny. We were going to go to DC and take it over by storm, and well, that didn't work out.
I never saw that.
I'm living in
city again.
Salisbury. Yeah, I'm living in Salisbury. And I was basically the company that I was with. They went through and got acquired by a venture capital company in the West Coast, and the company shut down the entire office, like 300 people, like. No more job. Go home, and people are crying and they're putting stuff in their boxes. And I just remember being like, I hated this job. And like I've been sitting in this cube listening to Kevin Plank talk about entrepreneurship and watching all these different entrepreneurship videos and thinking of, to your point, remember when you mentioned being in that meeting and asking about your passion, right? And like I didn't have a passion for any of this stuff, but I had a passion for two things, like I mentioned earlier. I came home and I told my wife, I was like, look, I don't know how much higher on the income trajectory I'm going to go past where I'm at right now, but I'm miserable doing the day-to-day stuff right now. And now that I have a kid, like I need some fulfillment in my life. Like I need to be home. Like I need something. I was like, I either want to coach college lacrosse or I want to get in this industry. And I went and reached out to the head coach of Loyola College, Charlie Toomey, and he told me, you have a kid. There's no way you can afford to be a college lacrosse coach. Go home right now. And I left. And then I got up with Chuck and Corpon, and I said, this is coming to Maryland right now. I don't know what we can do with our limited capital and position and all of this, but I believe that you guys can help me in this, and I believe that there's something substantial here that we can get into. And basically on a handshake agreement, we got a buy-in that we wanted to do something at some level. We originally just talked about doing a courier service where we were going to try to transport cash and transport product. Like leasing, Brinks trucks. I mean, we did all these different ideas. The only thing we didn't want to do, honestly, was open a dispensary. I swear to God, that was
It's the one thing.
it was the one thing that we agreed that we weren't going to do, because it seemed like a sucker's bet. It seemed like a lot of hard work, and I wasn't really sure that that we had the ability to execute on that. But we're kind of trucking down this plan, and another friend of mine says, "Hey, I'm going after a grow processing license, but we don't want the dispensary. Come work with us, not on the same application, but kind of together. And if we get approved and you get approved, then we'll have this kind of deal." So we got at that point. Then I found Mary Pat, and then I didn't go back to work. I collected unemployment for 6 months while I wrote my application, and I just literally all I did was 20 hours out of the day was write an application with Chuck and Mary Pat and Corpon. We self-authored our application. The total amount of dollars that we spent to submit our application was $5,500. So this idea that you have to be like rich or have all these resources, you don't if you're willing to do.
Like Manny said, put in the work.
Yeah, I mean, I lived 40 days of, or maybe 60 days of just hell. I mean, just it was grueling, and I was willing to do it, and I was willing to do it because I was enjoying the work, and it was my passion. And like I'm sitting there in a basement at 4 a.m. just pounding on a computer writing these questions, and it felt like that's what I was supposed to be doing. And then just to kind of caveat, so we get approved, and then the next step is, well, like, now what? So in the time that we got approved and not, I had lived this life where I'm 100% cannabis. I make the commitment that the cannabis industry is where I belong. I'm not going to do anything else. And then the state is a year late on the approvals. And now I'm asking myself the question of, did I just convince my wife that, like, you know what I mean? Like, what am I going to do? I have no money. I have no job. I have all this stuff that I just laid out there. This isn't working on my timeline that I needed. And I ended up getting recruiting to go work for SAP, which is a really large software company, for an affiliate out of Shanghai, China. At one point, I was flying to Shanghai and flying all over the damn country. And so I got to live a little bit of I made the commitment and just did the cannabis thing, but then my financials and life caught up to me. So then I had to do a little bit of the both, where so I'm working for a software company, and now we find out we do get approved, and now I'm finally like getting more financially stable, and I have some health insurance, and it's like, all right, sweetheart, kids, like, we're going to cancel this again and go back and do the poor man's cannabis thing. And I went and did that.
You still had to do both at one point?
I had to do both at one point, and I got a partner, Chuck and Corp, I do the same thing. So Chuck, your story is?
Yeah, I mean, basically the same type of thing. I mean, I had 2 jobs.
What was your feeling when you first got approved? I mean, was it like
when we first got the license approved? I mean, it was kind of like, I remember where I was. I was driving on Route 70 out to get the wife a new car because her old one blew up, and like all of a sudden it was, I forget what time it was. It was like a half an hour before they announced them all to the public. We got this email. It was like 3:30, 4 o'clock, and I was reading it while I was driving. Of course, it's like the email you've been waiting for a year. You know what I mean?
Didn't Kyle have to read it off to you?
I don't remember. She might have.
I feel like Kyle might have read it off.
Because I mean, it's like the anticipation. Like, it's like, holy shit, we put this much time and effort. This has been a waiting game for a year. Like, it's yes or no, right? It's like you open the email. I was like looking away. You know how you don't want to look at something.
When I first I'm like, is this email ever coming? And then it came. I was like, I can't fucking open this thing. Like, what did they say no?
So it's open. It's just like I mean, you just get.
I started staring. I started crying. Like when I first opened it up, I was just like, it was probably, besides having my kids, probably one of the most emotionally rewarding things I'd ever done, because we competed so differently and uniquely compared to everybody else that we really felt like this was our DNA in the application.
You guys did it yourself.
Yeah. So it was wild, and then from there it was another year until we actually opened our doors. But at least at that point we had and there was still another application too. A lot of people forget. I was going through like all my old stuff on the computer the other day, and there was a stage 2 application, and it almost got lost on me in the past 18 months. So that final year, it was way better than the first year, because at least we knew that there was that kind of end in sight, that the program was coming. We're not in this purgatory of just like waiting to figure out yes or no yet.
It was crazy though, because Chuck was working like 4 a.m. to like...
Yeah, so like I was doing the whole time up until about a year ago. I was foreman for a commercial construction company. We did a lot of large projects in DC, Northern Virginia, Bethesda, Chevy Chase, that kind of area. And our hours, like, depends on what job I was on. Sometimes I was on the job at 2 o'clock in the morning. I had to work night shifts, 12-hour days, Saturdays. I don't remember how many. I mean, there was probably a year or two in there where I didn't have a Saturday off, I'm sure. Sundays too, just crazy hours trying to do all this and juggle a family.
We're trying to communicate. Like, if I have a business issue that happens at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, I know Chuck's not going to get to it till 4 or 5, right? And then, like, same thing, like,
it was like a 24-hour cycle.
Yeah, with Corpon as well. So the way that it worked out was Chuck was basically from 3 to 9 p.m. and then Corpon was like maybe 5 a.m. to, like, it was all over the place. But, like, at one point I had to physically turn my phone off at night because it was just constantly going on a 24-hour schedule. And it would be something that would be like a huge issue, and Chuck would, like, give feedback to it or an answer, and I can't look at that, read it, and just, like, close my eyes and go back to sleep. Like, you got to address these things. I'm laying in bed, sending emails, and fucking, it was crazy. Chuck was the first one to come full time between Corpon and himself, and that really, it was one of the largest, I would say, influxes to the business that possibly could have happened, because all of a sudden his full-time job is focusing on our business. And he the point that we're at now, like, even Corpon, I mean, they weren't like, they didn't have shitty jobs, right? Corpon, I mean, Chuck's managing like 300 people. I mean, at the same time, I mean, it's not like he could just, like, be checked out of his full-time job, and
that wasn't possible.
It wasn't possible.
My full-time job was very demanding.
Very demanding.
And 24 hours, 7 days a week.
Yeah, and a matter of fact, like, you were getting some promotions. Like, I'm pretty sure you got your first full-time, like, your first full job not too long.
Yeah, I ran a couple of very large projects during this whole process. So it was interesting. Yeah, it's interesting and fun. So that's kind of...
But, so, there's some things to take away. You basically heard a lot of tenacity. You've heard the ability to just go in and do what's asked and more, and to take the initiative and to dress for the part, three steps ahead of where you're looking to go. Just don't say, okay, well, I'm just getting a shitty brand ambassador job, not even a sales job that I want, so I'll just show up and cash it in this interview. No, you go in there and you try to fucking blow it out of the water. And I think that really is a lot of good information for folks that are, like Chuck said, even if you're just getting out of college and you're looking at some job aspirations. You've heard some really good to-do tips here. One thing I didn't mention a bunch of, but I think it's important just before we transition, is there's a lot of these, like, pop-up training companies. I'm seeing more and more of them out there, where they'll come in and they'll rent out some hotel for 2 or 3 days, and they'll offer you a couple $100s to go and attend their classes. I can tell you that truthfully, that's not something that we are overly eager to see from our candidates. It's not typically something that we value a lot. I think for us, maybe Chuck's earlier point, like, we're looking for the soft skills. I'm looking for trainability. We're looking for folks that are willing to come in and buy into our process. We put a lot of work and effort into Dr. Hoffman creating the clinical atmosphere in our dispensary and creating our IP. And it's, for us, it's less about what you know and more about what you can, your ability to learn. We love learners. We love people that come in and learn. And then really your ability to get along with others. As someone who's trying to grow the business at a hyper speed, I can tell you that one of the things that we've added to our hiring process is almost like a checks and balances with our current employees. So, like, the last 5, maybe even more folks that we've hired, we basically have gone to our current staff and say, how do you feel about this person? And unless there's an overwhelming yay, we really want this person in our culture, in our environment, you're not getting hired. And, I don't care about your resume. I don't really care too much about a lot of the other things, other than, do I reasonably believe that you're willing to do what you say you're going to do? A lot of people say, I'll do whatever it takes. I'll take the brand ambassador role, even though I want the sales associate's job. And then 2 weeks into the brand ambassador role, they're like, how come I didn't get the sales associate job? And, like, I know that I said that I was willing to work really hard to work my way up, but, like, I really wasn't. And I need that instant gratification. And, we found that that's very real. And we're lucky to have the great staff that we do. And when I look at our staff now, I think our ability to scale and get bigger is based upon their ability to get along, and we don't deal with a lot of the bullshit and culture killing and energy sucks and all that stuff that every business deals with. For us, that's one of the biggest things that we focus on, is making sure we avoid that. So, I think that my assumption is that when Rise was hiring you, they saw you as a team player and your ability to want to get in and jump in, and it probably had a huge part to do with your success.
Yeah, teamwork goes a long way. You gotta be reliable for each other. You gotta have each other's back. Your staff is the backbone of the whole organization.
For 100%.
Yeah.
And the relationships have gone. So, the relationships are so much in this industry as it's continued to mature. It seems silly, but like this time last year, we knew so much less than we knew, right? There were so many less products to market. There was so much less.
The menu size has gone from like 1 page to like
when we first
6,
opened,
7.
we had 6 items.
Oh yeah,
on our menu
no.
on day one.
I remember
7 or
that.
6, it was like 6 items we had.
Yeah, we had awakening tabs. We had like 5 strains and
An elixir.
Yeah. Wild.
Let's talk about the industry now.
Yeah.
Transition a little bit.
Yeah. So now there are more, and there's also a lot more opportunities now, right? So if you're someone listening to this, I would say that the industry now has progressed significantly. We see the conversations are much more detailed with patients than you saw. Right.
I could speak for it just because I go around the state like constantly. So like the amount of conversations I had there's a lot. It's a lot of conversation. I talk to a lot of patients. There's about like over 93,000 patients in the state now. But, in the beginning, we didn't have that many. And those people didn't really know what they were getting into. They knew THC. Some of them knew CBD. But, now it's more like they know the cannabinoids. They know the terpenes in the product. So it's like the conversations I had now, it's like, hey, like entourage effect. Like synergy, like what cannabinoids work well with what terpenes, like what delivery method is good for what diseases, like that kind of, like the conversations I'm having, it's like top
way
notch.
More in line with what a medical program should be.
Right. Yeah.
I'm impressed by how fast Maryland has caught up and everything. Our prices coming down, products evolution. The products that we have in our dispensary right now there's not this like level of access that I was concerned about. Like, was West Coast going to continue to have like way more products than we do? There's some stuff that pops up here and there, but we have diamonds, we have sauce, we have terp sap, what more do you want?
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, there's so many products. What are some of the things that you think are the biggest evolutions that you've seen in the industry besides the conversations and the products?
The breaking the stigma. So, like, have you guys gone to any coffee shops and seen CBD infused coffee anywhere? Dude, that stuff is popping off. Like, it's everywhere. So that kind of messaging, we didn't see that last year. That kind of gives me goosebumps. But like, it's true. Like, people are actually breaking the stigma. Like, I'm still trying to break the stigma with my parents, but that's a long battle for me. But I talked to many patients that like came to the other side of the the table.
And I think the more that people like us are out there discussing the medical benefits of it, right, it's way easier to kind of erase that stigma, for lack of a better word, as long as you're talking with some confidence in it and you know what you're talking about, and giving people the medicinal side of things, just not, how many dabs you have to take to get completely torn apart, right? So it's cool that the patients, and I will say this, like, it's interesting, and we could, I know a lot of the patients out there are listening are familiar with the pop-ups that we have. I know Manny comes and does pop-ups all the time for us, which we're super grateful for. A lot of the other growers and the processors do. And I think through that process, having you guys on site's probably done a whole lot to kind of at least get the patients familiar with who's producing the cannabis products that they're buying, and some of the different
It's like my
features,
favorite
right?
thing. Like, at no point in time, any prescription I've ever gotten, did I actually go and speak to the person that made my medicine. And Mary Pat talks about this a lot, but like, in our dispensary, it's one of the few places in life where someone feels like some autonomy over their health. No one's saying you have to take this tablet 3 times a day and like that's it.
Right.
This is like, do you want to smoke flower? Do you want to concentrate? Do you want a pen? Do you want a tablet? Do you want a patch?
Always go low and slow. Like
What's going to make you feel better? And I think people feel like when they have to, because the truth is that our most successful patients are the ones that are disciplined and document and actually follow protocol. But I can tell you that one thing that I'm finally happy to see happening is some of the THC conversations are getting more mature.
Right.
For a while, it was almost downtrodden that I hear people come in and
what's the highest
and
THC?
just bash my
That was the
dispensary.
number one question on the board a couple months ago, right?
And and we had a patient literally walk out because the only thing we had was 23%. She won't smoke anything under 26%. Like, yeah, like how dare you piss alternative health?
But back in the day, like
She never hit above 11. Yeah, max she ever had.
nothing tested, nothing even labeled.
No.
Nah, it's cool. It's cool.
No,
but sometimes people
I
forget.
wasn't feeling so great this weekend, and I was basically the flower I smoked all weekend was 11% THC, 6% CBD from Curio, their Blue Dream CBD strain. And, like, it was the perfect therapeutic for like my stomach, everything that I was going through. And like I just think about someone coming in and being so hell bent on getting that super high THC, and that just wouldn't have done the trick for me. And like I'm so happy that people are understanding that 20% with 1% myrcene or 1.5% myrcene is going to be stronger than 26% with no terps because you didn't cure it properly and you didn't do what you're supposed to do. Like, and I guess this is a good transition kind of into. So when I think of the maturation of the industry, and I think of like some of the more mature products, they're coming from you guys. Like I truly believe that. I will hand on my kids. I will put Rythm cartridges against any other cartridge I've ever had. I love the Curio cartridges too. Don't get me wrong, but so it's a supercritical CO2 extraction process, and like I guess to the evolution of the conversation, like what I get super giddy about is when I see like 10% terps,
And it's native terpenes too. That's what Rythm kind of like specializes on, native terpenes.
So jump into that real quick because I totally understand that, but there's a lot of people that don't get it and they don't understand why XYZ cart is less expensive. And
right, I mean that's a critical
different and like
totally.
So why don't you go through the whole process of why Rythms, I guess.
So Rythm, like the best way to describe Rythm cart is like liquid flour, just because it tastes just like flour. Am I right? I mean, right? So like pretty much the CO2 critical extraction, we do 2 of those guys. So the first phase is the cannabinoids, and the second phase is the terpenes. So pretty much, we're taking the terpenes from that actual strain. So that's why it's native terpenes. And it's cannabis derived, so you got that cannabis flavor, that liquid flower taste. So pretty much your Northern Lights, your sour diesel will taste just like the Northern Lights and sour diesel because we're extracting in 2 different phases. So nobody else is doing that.
99.9% of people listening to this completely understand what terpenes are, but just in case Chuck's mom's hanging out, listen to us again. Terpenes are going to be what's going to give you the flavor and the smell in the flower, and they're going to have a lot of therapeutic effects too. And truthfully, it's not anything that I spoke about 2 years ago. I wasn't versed in terpenes. I wasn't really talking a lot about them. But now it truly dictates how I find my medicine. And that liquid flower analogy is exactly right, because a lot of those carts that they either taste like some kind of flavoring, some vape juice flavoring, or they're not. So here's the juxtaposition. So Rythm is going to have a 2-step process. They're going to preserve all the terpenes. They're going to preserve the cannabinoids. What most folks are doing, or a lot of folks are doing, is they're just ripping out the THC and the cannabinoids. The terpenes are being destroyed.
Right. When you do that, you kind of forget about the entourage effect. Because, when you're smoking a blunt, you're getting that head-to-toe feeling. Am I right? I mean, because you're getting those terpenes, and none of that other stuff is, like, coming from anywhere else. I'm not saying that stuff is bad, because it's, all natural plants and stuff. But when you're smoking a joint, you're smoking the joint terpenes, not anything else.
We don't know how linalool from lavender is going to act compared to linalool from cannabis. And that's something that, Mary Pat just shared an article with me about terpene toxicity, which is something that we're going to start hearing about eventually, because we've never truthfully, the market hasn't really dictated that we start getting these super high level of terpenes to understand what that's like. And until people start utilizing those products, we need to get some research around it. But I am a terpene snob. I can't stand botanically derived terpenes because of the taste. For me, is it's off putting. Um, and when you take those and preserve those terpenes from the flower and you put them back in, it is the closest to flower taste that you could possibly get. With all the amazing benefits of what a vape cartridge is, which is not, you're not inhaling smoke. It doesn't smell. It's very discreet. It's like a really. It's been honestly the Rhythm vape carts have been like one of the biggest game changers to my daily medicating that I ever would have imagined. Um, Before, if I was out traveling or let's say I'm out with a family somewhere and I feel the need to medicate, what was I gonna smoke a bowl or like having to like do this very overly,
Extra steps.
yeah, it was just it's not, it doesn't vibe with family Darby
With the current setting.
the current setting, right? But now it's sneak out, two quick puffs on the vape pen, and I'm back to dadding, and I don't miss a beat. And it's
Got
like
your endocannabinoid system.
my
all lumped up
endocannabinoid
again.
system is balanced. I'm good to go, and
There you go.
I'm not freaking out. I'm not a nut mess in my head, and I'm able to enjoy the scenario without having to like, it used to be such an ordeal to medicate. And I'm not someone that ever liked edibles. It's mainly because of the dosing fact of it, and because I'm someone that likes to maintain my energy, and I find that edibles just they suck my energy out. So to have a vape pen, something that's strategic that I can just very easily on the go utilize, it's been amazing.
You're heavy into sativas. I know that for sure. Yeah.
I am heavy into sativas.
Energized cards. I know that. Air Force One.
So Air Force One Terp Sap is amazing. I really like the Golden Tiger.
Okay.
That was is that on here?
Yeah, that's what I got right now.
Yeah. So that's always super great. But honestly, we all grow up, right? We all learn a little bit, and I probably am more sativa hybrid, and like I don't like I still love my sativas. Don't get me wrong, but I realized that there's some downsides to just using sativas. I was getting this kind of sativa wall where like I would get energized, and all of a sudden it would just be like a crash. Where like I was like, man, I just want to go to sleep. Like I don't. And then also, our lives are so up and down right now. We deal with so many different life events and craziness that like sometimes when I'm stressed, sativa is not gonna make me more productive. It's just gonna make me more frazzled in the head. It's weird, like what I've learned. You kind of learn how your own endocannabinoid system. You learn how to medicate for yourself. And what I realize is that like sometimes during that mid afternoon, a balance pen, or sometimes even a relaxed pen, is going to make me more productive than a sativa because it calms my mind. Now my mind's not freaking me out. Now I'm actually able to go out and do my thing.
That's why I think a lot of patients are thinking like that too. Like, we just talked about how patients are evolving. I mean, they're learning their own endocannabinoid system. So they know what they're putting into their system. So that's a really good.
I used to think that I love pining. I don't need tons, it can make your mind race in a way that's counterproductive and things like that. So we got the Rythm cartridges. You got Mary's, all right?
Mary's, Dr. Solomon. So Dr. Solomon is like kind of like our own brand now. That's what we bought in. So Mary's, yeah. So Mary's was the first line we brought in with the first CBD product, the patches, the transdermal pens.
We got an MS patient that uses the patches, the indica patch, and that's all she uses, and it's like phenomenal for her.
Right, it's transdermal, so it just like goes through your circle.
And Mary's is something that if you guys are in Colorado or out west, like you'll find them in other states. Certain brands, they basically do a licensing deal. So Air Pro, exactly. So GTI's got that Air Pro deal. They have the Mary's deal. You see Curio as Dixie products. So different folks will do these exclusive contracts within the state. How's the Air Pro been kicking off? Good.
Oh yeah, they're good. Arguably, I think they're Rythm and Air Pro, two best cards in the game right now. Air Pro, botanical terps. So Rythm is liquid flower, but there's a market out there. So we decided to bring those guys in because they're famous in the other states. They have a well-established market in the West Coast. We just brought them onto the East Coast. So Maryland is like the first East Coast state.
They're here Friday. Or sorry, Thursday.
Yeah, they're coming on Thursday. Yeah,
so
yeah,
if you're
come by.
in Salisbury and looking to meet
Drop
up with
by.
the dudes at AeroPro, I know for a fact Thursday.
My boy Steve will be there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're coming in. So what's in the future for GTI? Like, what are you excited
So
about?
currently, I mean, we want to focus on building the brands that we already have. So we just released Dr. Salmon. So that's like our own brand, kind of like the Field Collection.
Those are just topicals, correct?
Yeah, it's topicals, but we do have other plans down the line. So Dr. Salmon is more of a medicinal line. So, our market presidents, Laura Brown and Rebecca Brown, her mom is Dr. Salmon. So she's in clinical research. She's been in over pretty much cancer research for over like 25 years. So she was part of like the pap smear procedure, and like it's also known as the Bethesda procedure. So a lot of females know about this procedure. So she pretty much combined her knowledge with the cannabis knowledge through through the daughters, and now we created Dr. Salmon line. The 10-to-1 RSO from the Field Collection, we moved that over to the Dr. Salmon. So created it to be more of a medicinal line, and the Field Collection is going to be like the Field Collection tinctures and the capsules.
Sorry to interrupt, but I was just thinking about your products. So you guys have some RSO products that are really unique. The CBD RSO in particular is something that I know Aaron, our assistant clinical director, has been utilizing a ton. Do you find that it's because at some point in time, if the market only wants high THC and some of these other products are tougher to move, the incentive to produce them is decentivized. Right. Do you find that now Maryland's market is more robust, that there's still space for the CBD products and some of these more medicinal products?
Yeah, I think CBD is really essential. I think there should be a lot of CBD products coming out. I mean, a lot of people are coming out with more ratios now. I see a lot of ratios coming out, and a lot of patients are evolving, and they're starting to see that the ratios are working out better for them than high THC. So I think CBD should. I mean, your last episode was about what hemp CBD and stuff. So I mean, yeah, CBD is a huge market still, for sure.
Every coffee shop on the side of the Bay Bridge that tried to put CBD in their coffee got shut down by the health department.
The health department didn't like it very much.
Hemp CBD?
Yeah, ours.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, and restaurants and. So there's still tons of gray areas around that, but the one area that seems pretty black and white is not using it as a food additive at this point, or at least here.
I do see it around everywhere else. That's
I can't imagine that.
I think it's the county health inspectors that will come in and say, no thanks. So like Wycomico County and Worcester County, which is Ocean City, both of them didn't like the idea very much.
Okay, because I do see it around everywhere. Yeah. Like Baltimore, Rockville, I see like CBD infused coffee.
I'm sure it's probably a little tough. I mean, I was at the gas station this morning at Exxon. They had 3 different forms of tinctures, gummies, and kratom.
Huh? Yeah.
In a acrylic plastic box that was like this big. Like, if people buy this stuff, she goes all the time. I go, you know if it works? Not a clue. Just shake my head, walk away. Just like, but. So GTI, is GTI gonna get involved in edibles?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, for sure. Edible market is out there. Definitely want to get.
Do you have any perspective timelines of what you guys think?
I'm thinking more like Halloween time. Like, it could be like.
What could go wrong?
Yeah. Possibly this year is how I'll frame it, right? Possibly this year.
Have you guys gotten any of the details of the regulations, like in terms of is the Food and Health Beverage Association, like, are they involved? Are you guys gonna put a kitchen in?
So that part I do know. We do have a kitchen built, and we are hiring for chefs too. Cool. So that part I do know. So I'm guessing the FDA is approved.
You're gonna get some more requires for chefs. I can't believe there's a shortage of chefs that don't like weed.
Yeah. Right.
Where will I ever find a kitchen staff that likes smoking marijuana?
Anyway,
every kitchen staff ever.
You know what's funny? I'm going back to the country club days. Like everybody was consuming cannabis, but everybody had to hide it. Yeah. Like like the holiday parties, I would be high as hell. I had to hide it, but Come to a holiday party in GTI, it's a different, it's a different story. It's just like, oh, whatever. It's like, go to holiday parties with you guys. It's just like different vibe. You don't have to hide it. It's just like everything's evolving, like breaking that stigma. It's like,
it's kind of like sometimes we'll bring outsiders into the dispensary, and they'll be like, "Is your staff high?" We're like, "Everyone in this building smoked weed this morning. Like every one of us. Like we're fine. Like this is how it works.
we're
like,
fine.
Yeah, like this is how it works. It's interesting. Like this perception of like,
Still had that perception.
And then there's always like the comparison of like, okay, the holiday party, like how many people were like hammered, how many people were like, you know what I mean, using all these other vices, but like if you got caught smoking weed, you could have lost your job the next day. Like it's crazy. So we got edibles.
Oh yeah, I forgot to tell you, we are releasing like a couple of new strains for the Aero Pro as well. Okay. So stay in tune for that. Yep.
You can't.
It might be like a white tip involved. I don't know. That's like a hint. You know.
Solid hint.
Solid hint.
I like it.
But it's a new color. That's all I can say.
All right.
Yeah.
What about the cultivation front? How are things moving there?
Yeah, it's going along good. I'm thinking more like Rythm 2020 should be available. So looking forward to that. Never dealt with flower before, well, except in college, but
yeah.
But
it's going to be a big difference for your business, right? I mean, you all of a sudden are competing now against a lot of folks that you didn't compete against before in terms of the flower stuff, and the flower market is probably never been more competitive. I mean, so I went through a little bit of transition where I wasn't really smoking a lot of flower during the end of the year. I was really all into those concentrates and getting silly. I took a step back and I'm back into flower now, and I'm just amazed at the quality of flower that we have in that dispensary. I mean, it seems like it's getting more and more competitive. The table stakes are continuing to rise, and 20-something% with terpenes that looks and smells great is just like table stakes to get you like into the game. You know what I mean? Well, it's all and even folks that from folks that even traditionally didn't test like that. I mean, we had a 33% banana puddington from Sunmed. I wasn't smoking Sunmed flower before, but that got me to try it. So it's and it looks great. It tasted good. I mean, so the flower game is really competitive, and you guys are coming into a tough market. But I've seen what you guys have done in other states. I'm excited to see what that looks like. I'm sure it creates some advantages on the processing side as well. And
we're gonna have some strong genetics coming through, so it's gonna be, like I said, liquid flower. We're gonna have our own genetics transformed into our cart. So looking forward to that as well.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on and talking a little GTI and talking about how you kind of got your footprint in the industry. It was really insightful. I hope some folks paid attention and took some notes, because there's a lot to be learned in that story in terms of if you're out there looking to get a job, being willing to hustle and look and have some vision like Manny did to look past just the immediate opportunity and seeing those next steps. I think is super important. So thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Manny. Our first guest.
Yeah,
first guest is in the books.
Love it.
Signing out.